Hello everyone, welcome back to another video where today I want to talk a little bit about someone who has thrown their ring into the conversation of being the next showrunner. This comes in kind of an uncertain time for Doctor Who. None of us really know what's going on yet. It's been about 2 weeks since the last episode and we haven't really had any update as to what the future holds for Doctor Who. We've got leaks, we've got rumours and we've got speculation, but that's about all we have right now. However, one man has been very, persistent in expressing his desire to be Doctor Who showrunner. And I kind of just want to talk about this because I've seen it doing the rounds, and I think it's an interesting conversation. So let's just dive right into it. But subscribe if you're new, that'd be greatly appreciated. We are trying to get 30,000 subscribers, and we just hit 28,700, so any support would be greatly appreciated. 300 subscribers away from 29,000, we're really climbing up there now, almost there, but let's dive right in. So I'm taking this from Radio Times, but if you've been on Twitter, you'll have seen this. Babylon 5 creator throws hat in the ring to take over Doctor Who again. J. Michael Straczynski has said running Doctor Who would be the thrill of a lifetime. So if you don't know, J. Michael Straczynski is the creator of Babylon 5. He's also worked on a bunch of other shows as well, including things like She-Ra and He-Man in the 80s alongside the real Ghostbusters, and of course Babylon 5. Now, confession, I have not seen Babylon 5, so I cannot attest to what that's like as a show. I'm sure some of you guys in the comments will have seen it, and you can let me know. Let me know if it's worth a watch. I haven't seen it, so. But the thing I know J. Michael Straczynski from is his run on the Amazing Spider-Man comics, which I think was pretty good. I mean, it does end with One More Day, which is one of the most infamous Spider-Man comics for anyone who's into the Spider-Man comics. That's the one where essentially Spider-Man, Peter Parker, makes a deal with Mephisto, basically the devil, to revive Aunt May and basically make it so that him and Mary Jane were never married. This is seen as like one of the worst Spider-Man stories because it regresses Peter Parker as a character. However, I will say, I believe J. Michael Straczynski said it's not really what he wanted to do. It was kind of a mandate from Marvel. So anyway, that's my context and my kind of relationship with this man's work out of the way. But he has said working on Doctor Who would be the thrill of a lifetime. J. Michael Straczynski, the American filmmaker and comic book writer behind series such as Babylon 5, Jeremiah and Sense8, has once again expressed interest in potentially taking the reins of Doctor Who. Straczynski is currently moving to the UK on a visa, which will mean he is an official UK resident, allowing him to work for any studio or production company or network on this side of the pond. So that's another interesting wrinkle in all this. If you're to work for the BBC, as far as I understand it, you have to be a UK resident. You have to live in the UK, which is not something I knew until this story came out, which is just pretty interesting. Some fans had speculated that he would be moving to work on Doctor Who, a show he has expressed interest in writing for in the past. However, Straczynski has now clarified in a post that this is not the case, even though I would love nothing more in my life than to take on that job as showrunner. It would be the thrill of a lifetime, he added, but we'll see. Straczynski also questioned in a reply to one user whether Doctor Who fans would be willing to accept an American, even a hardcore Anglophile with a UK visa, for such an inherently British series, given Babylon 5 and Sense8 and the like. Would I be worthy, he asked. I'm just going to say it right now, and I'm going to say this as someone who doesn't really have much of an understanding of J. Michael Straczynski's work beyond Spider-Man. You're absolutely worthy. You're absolutely worthy. You've clearly got your flowers. You've been working in the industry for decades. I think you're more than worthy for the job as showrunner. Personally, I don't think it matters one bit the nationality of the showrunner of the show, as long as they have an understanding of its place in, like, British culture, which you very clearly do, because you said, you're a hardcore Anglophile and stuff. The only thing I stipulate is that I think the person playing the Doctor needs to have a connection to the UK. I think that is core to that character. That might be a bit controversial, but I think that is my one stipulation, is they need to at least be from the UK and Ireland if they're playing the Doctor. Outside of that, got no real issue with anything else. I think that for me is the one stipulation I have, because at the end of the day, it's like with James Bond, right? Some characters are just inherently British, and I do think James Bond, Sherlock Holmes, and Doctor, or Doctor Who, are kind of the big three, and I kind of feel that that's the one essential part, in my opinion. And that's not me being like, nativist. I've got a very weird relationship with the UK in general as someone who's from Wales and kind of feels more pride in being Welsh than being British as a collective thing. But I just think as a character, that's so ingrained in the Doctor now that not having them have some connection to Britain would just be weird at this stage. I also just think that there's something inherently quirky and weird about the British character that, lends it very well to being a character like the Doctor. That's not to say that Americans can't be quirky, but it's a different type of quirky. But yeah, I'm going to say I don't think the nationality of the showrunner matters one bit. As long as they, are free to make the move to the UK to make the show, which J. Michael Straczynski is, I don't think that matters at all. But I'd be interested to see what you guys think. In 2021, after then showrunner Chris Chibnall announced his departure from Doctor Who, Straczynski said he would be there in a heartbeat to take on the role, and later revealed he had made contact with the BBC regarding this. I remember this. Bro clearly wants the job because the last 2 times it's come up, he's wanted it. I mean, to be fair, I don't blame him for reaching out multiple times. I would do exactly the same if I was someone in his position with the kind of experience in running shows like this that he very clearly has. The role ultimately went to returning showrunner Russell T Davies, who previously revived the show in 2005 and left in 2010. He has now been back in charge in 2023, although he has said that conversations are already ongoing on who will take over when he decides to leave again. He said on David Tennant Does a Podcast With earlier this year, there's thinking about that, there's conversations about that, but it's hard, it's a tricky one. But they better exist. Imagine, I'm dead at the desk. The cliche would kill me. Fans continue to wait on news for the future of Doctor Who, with Season 16 not currently officially confirmed. The next project in the Whoniverse to arrive on screens will be the new spin-off, The War Between the Land and the Sea. So that's it, really. That's all there really is to this story. But I mean, hey, if Radio Times can get a whole article out of it, and then Confused Adipose can do a video on it, I see no reason why I can't too. I think it would be good to get someone who is of a fresh perspective of Doctor Who and of the show. Don't get me wrong, I love Russell and Stephen, and even though I'm not a big Chris Chibnall fan, he seems like a lovely guy. But I do think that the show has basically been handed between 3 of the same guys for 20 years, and it would be nice to see someone completely just from somewhere else, from the different side of the world, take over with a sci-fi background and go, this is my idea. I think the show needs a new voice, a fresh voice, to carry it forward. I love Russell, I love him to bits, and of course I don't think he'll leave soon. I think whatever happens with the Billie Piper 16th Doctor will have to be resolved first, but I also don't want him to stay out of a sense of obligation. Do you know what I mean? I think if someone like J. Michael Straczynski is willing to do the job, someone with experience, who's working in the UK, who has residency in the UK, so there's no legal barrier to him working on the show, I see no reason why when Russell does eventually, in his own time, decide to step down, or whenever he does step down, I see no reason why J. Michael Straczynski couldn't be in the consideration. And again, that's just me as someone who hasn't seen his work, but can see that he's clearly, earned his stripes. He's clearly more than qualified to do it. And I'd be interested to see, a brand new person who isn't part of the initial kind of coterie of Doctor Who writers take on the show. Because, I often hear discussion about who the next showrunner can be, and I hear, the same few names, come out. For example, nothing against the man at all, but Pete McTeague. Pete McTeague is a perfect example. Do I think, he's a decent writer? Sure, he's written a couple of things I like. I like the collection box set. I thought Lucky Day recently was pretty good. But do I think he would offer something radically different from what we've already had with Russell, Stephen, and Chris? I don't really think he would. Just from what I've seen. I could be wrong. He could come in and be showrunner and make something worlds apart from what we've seen already. But I almost think he's too close to the same few people that we've already had. And I think having someone just entirely different would be good. And I think, obviously, as we know, this kind of Disney deal seems to be coming to an end. And I think if it is, it would make sense if we do end up going to a new streamer eventually. If a new creative forefronts that new vision. And I want to say again, and I want to clarify, this is coming from someone who actually thinks that RTD2 is not that bad, and it has had some of my favourite episodes in years, but even I can acknowledge that at some point, it's time to let someone new have a go. And I do sort of think now, especially with Reality War having come out and that reveal, I do think I am kind of at that point. As I've said in previous videos, I'm more kind of forgiving of Russell because at the end of the day, he started this whole thing. This whole revival wouldn't be here if he wasn't. Frankly, it's just true. And I probably wouldn't have a job without Russell T Davies. And I don't mean that in the sense that people will say, oh, he's paid by Russell T Davies. That great old conspiracy. But I just mean that none of New Who would exist without that team. So I'm forever grateful for that team. But I think, you know, maybe it's time for some new people. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Comment down below your thoughts. There's an interesting debate about Doctor Who as a show. Does the idea of an American showrunner bother you? Personally, it doesn't bother me at all, provided that they, you know, respect the kind of identity of the programme, which I have no doubt that J. Michael Straczynski would from everything he said. Let me know what you guys think. Subscribe if you're new, like if you enjoy, and I'll see you later.